Montecito, California is a town with a lot of buzz, a lot of celebrity, a lot of exclusivity. You might have heard that Oprah or Ellen or the royal family live and own property there. In this video, I want to break down and talk about the real pros and cons, what it's really like to live in Montecito, California. So let's get right to it. So if you've heard about Montecito, you might not know this, but the population is right above 8,500 people. It's a smaller community, a lot of second homeowners, and it boasts some of the most unique, incredible properties in all of the United States. The zip code for Montecito is 93108, and it's just due south of Santa Barbara and just due north of Summerlin and Carpinteria. So with that background information, let's jump into the pros and cons of what it's really like to live in Montecito. So one of the main pros, and a lot of people in Montecito would agree with me, is the natural beauty and the landscape in Montecito. Montecito hosts some of the most breathtaking beaches like Butterfly Beach. It also hosts amazing hikes, areas with waterfalls, beautiful scenery and natural gardens, and areas like Lotus Land, which are known throughout the country as one of the best premier private gardens in all of the nation. Another huge pro about living in Montecito is it has fantastic entry-level elementary schools, both private and public options. A couple of the public schools that are ranked really high are Montecito Union and Cold Spring. So if you live in the community, you can send your kids to fantastic primary elementary school. Another classic pro about living in Montecito is that the properties are expansive, unique, meticulously designed, and host a different type of architecture for everyone. There's properties right on the beach if you want that. There's properties behind thick gates with huge properties and grounds if you want that as well. There's ocean view properties more up in the hills area. Montecito architecture and real estate is fantastic. Another huge pro about all of Montecito, which also includes the Central Coast where we live in general, is our weather is so mild and temperate. A lot of people in Montecito, they buy a second home because either they live in a cold weather state and they come here in the wintertime, or they live in a hot weather state and they come here in the summertime to get away from those extreme weathers. Montecito is super mild throughout the year. Our winter times sometimes drop as low as 50s, sometimes high 40s at night. And then the summer times occasionally will break into the hundreds, but most of the time throughout the year, we're in the 70s. It's sunny, there's a nice breeze. It's beach season almost year round. You can always go outside for a hike. And while we do have rain, we very rarely, if not never, have snow unless you go into the mountains a little bit. So for those people that want to come here who want to have a temperate climate or maybe escape more extreme climates wherever they live the other parts of the year, Montecito is a great option. For being such a small town, Montecito hosts a plethora of shopping, places to eat, and even fantastic resorts to explore. Some of my favorites are Bettina Pizza, Honor Bar is super good right on Coast Village. Tre Lune is fantastic Italian food. And then when it comes to resorts, there's the Miramar, which is built by Caruso and is a fantastic beachfront resort that has multiple restaurants, areas to hang out, beach access. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to be staying at the resort to access all the amenities. You can actually park right off site and walk in and go get a drink at the beach bar or go get some dinner in the bistro, hang out on the fantastically renovated and meticulously cared for grounds. And wrapping up the pros for living in Montecito is the privacy that you get when living here. The amazing thing about Montecito is there's a lot of properties with very expansive acreage that are privately hedged and gated, so you have a lot of privacy from neighbor to neighbor. And another amazing thing too is there's actually laws here that ban paparazzi, and that's why there's a lot of celebrities that own homes here, second homes here. When they want to escape from LA and kind of the hectic scene of celebrity, they can come here, and actually paparazzi is not allowed to follow them and take videos and photos. That's a little less known fact about Montecito, but a lot of people love living here for the privacy. So that is the pros list of Montecito. There's obviously a lot of reasons why people love to come and live here in Montecito, but let's move on to the con side and talk about some of the downsides when it comes to living in Montecito. Okay, one of the main cons that needs to definitely be addressed is the natural disasters that have struck Montecito in recent years. Obviously, in 2018, there was the mud flow, which resulted in multiple casualties and was really devastating for the whole community. The mud flow was caused because of the Thomas Fire and the rains that then washed the hillside down and damaged lots of properties. And like I said, ended up in casualties as well. And that's definitely something to consider when living in Montecito. There's expansive properties. There's properties that are in the hills and mountains, which are higher risk for fire. There's areas towards the beach, and obviously there's natural erosion when it comes to the beaches. When you live in Montecito, it's really good to understand the insurance risks and the potential risks of natural disaster, and make sure that if you're buying a property here, you have a great insurance specialist that's going to make sure the property is covered in case anything happens. Another con to consider is that there's very limited public transportation when it comes to living in Montecito. There's a slight bus route that has a couple of stops in Montecito, but overall, if you're a kid or if you want public access to transportation, you either have to drive or take an Uber. Another con to consider for sure is the high cost of living in Montecito. The average price for a single family residence is north of $4 million, and a lot of residents sell for north of $10 million depending on the size of the estate and the location and the views. When you have a property that's that expensive, you have to consider property taxes, which are generally 1.1% of the purchase price. And everything in Montecito, whether it's the grocery stores, the restaurants, the things to do, they're priced accordingly to the high cost of living, so definitely something to consider when you're moving to Montecito. Another con to consider for sure is that there's limited job opportunities when it comes to living and working in Montecito. A lot of the residents obviously work in LA, work in other areas, work remote. There's a lot of hospitality jobs in Montecito and service jobs, but when it comes to high tech or high paying, high level jobs, there's not as many options if you want to live and work in Montecito. However, the thing to consider when it comes to privacy in living in Montecito is because the properties usually have such a buffer of gates, hedges, fences, and are just so spaced out, there's less of a neighborhood community feel when it comes to streets in Montecito. There's less of that neighbor chatter and that block party vibe than there is more privacy and individual properties. So that works for some people, but those who want a really tight-knit community and neighborhood with trick-or-treating and hangouts, Montecito might not be the best option for them. Wrapping up the con sheet, I did talk about the fact that there's great public elementary schools in Montecito, but when it comes to high schools, there's no option actually in Montecito. Those families that raise their kids in Montecito, they have to send their kids to high school most likely in Santa Barbara. So it's definitely something to consider. It's a little bit of a commute, it's a little bit out of the area, and there's not that local neighborhood high school when it comes to living in Montecito. So Montecito is obviously a super niche, unique community, and it offers a lot of pros, but there's certainly some cons to be considered as well if you're moving there full time or if you're buying a second home there. My team and I love giving our clients the full tours and the ins and outs of Montecito. So if you have questions, if you want to see homes in the community, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We'd love to help you out. And until our next video, guys, hope you make it a great day. We'll see you on the next one.